let's drop the word eventually. Let's drop the word future. I'm going to make it now. I wanted to make Pani. No, I'm not saying it's anybody else's fault. Sushant passed away.
Hmm.
Um, I've probably forgotten the politics of filmmaking in India because remember, I hadn't made a film in India since Bandit Queen. After Bandit Queen, I went overseas. I made Elizabeth, I made Golden Age, I made Four Feathers, I made a series, a huge series on the young William Shakespeare. I even did a horror series based on remember the film Omen? So
Hmm.
I made a series that little boy growing up, what happens. I made that series. I've done theater. I've done musical theater. When I was 24, I decided to give up one word from my life. It was called career. I'm not ever going to be part of that prison. I'm not ever going to be the prison of, oh, he's doing so well for himself. I refuse to call myself mature because I've always prided myself that I'm a bit of a child and will die a child. So
Hmm.
whenever I write a story about me, here's the man who refused to grow up. Please say that to people. If anybody writes a book on me, when I go, here's the man who refused to grow up. Okay, I'm going to let you ask me questions. Now you see
No, no,
how I
no, that's fine.
feel? I just go, okay.
I watched What's Love Got to Do with It a few days back, and I found it really, really interesting and fun. It was a fun watch, and uh, somewhere there were certain things that really resonated with me.
Really? Did you shed a tear at the end?
I did. I had a smile too.
I know, that's what I keep saying. That's what's the power of the film because it's a rom-com, but within the
Yeah,
rom-com, it's a family drama. And it's a really emotional
absolutely.
film. Within a rom-com,
Hmm.
because when they first offered it to me, they said, but Shekhar Kapur doesn't make rom-coms. He makes Elizabeth, Four Feathers, historicals, doesn't really make a rom-com. And I said, well, you haven't seen Mr. India. It was the biggest rom-com of all time in India. It's actually a rom-com, between
Yeah.
Sridevi and Kapoor. It's a rom-com. So I knew that. But and people keep saying you shifted the genres rom-com. I said, no, I've just put more substance in it. I've just tried to do who I am within, the fact that, especially after COVID, it's more about families. It's more about emotion. It's more about, because we were shooting the film during COVID in London and people
Hmm.
were dying in ambulances. It was so bad. And we were always coming on the date and wondering when is one of us going to go down,
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the middle of a pandemic and when are we going to have to stop shooting? So I was like, every day that I could shoot was a blessing. So like I finished the film in 40 days, film done. And that partly was because there was this COVID snapping on my feet. But no, it was just my instinctual idea that the film really, in its essence, is about finding. I was quite fascinated by this idea of dating apps.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I can't go on a dating app. I'll be able to find out. But the thing is, the idea that there was two female sexual revolutions for women, right? One was the pill. I was there. Suddenly,
Hmm.
they were free of being pregnant, so they could make their own decisions about sexuality. Then,
Absolutely.
you and but then even then, when a girl would come in and the guys would, be like, come on. In Punjab, we were told, "Ladki ko sharmate rehna chahiye." You know that? That was a huge imposition and led to all kinds of ideas. What dating app has done is taken that away. No
Yeah.
longer does have to come in and be shy and wait to be approached or something. She can just call a man, say, "I like you. I want to have sex with you." And it's acceptable.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it's second sexual revolution, and it puts men and women equal. And now, in this moment of equality, and if you're experimenting with sexuality and at freely, where does intimacy stand? Where does love stand?
Hmm.
Most of the girls that I talk to on dating apps and the men, they say, well, actually, we're looking for a sense of intimacy with somebody. We may not be looking for long term relationships, but those moments of relationships and moments of love are really important. Will casual sex deal with that? Maybe. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, well, maybe, But then on the other hand, does arranged marriage lead to that? Question is, Maybe. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. The film's not saying it. Maybe everybody has to do what they have to do. But ultimately, when I was talking to Lily James, I said, look, as I see it, you're in a tumble dryer. You're going round and round and round trying to find life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because of these technologies of dating apps and the modern world, the dryer is moving much faster than you ever thought it might.
Right.
And
Absolutely true.
yeah. And in that fast moving tumble dryer, you have to find love. You have to find intimacy, which we all believe is a moment of stillness. How do you do that? Right? So
Yeah,
that
I agree.
so
As a young woman of today's time, sir, I completely agree what you're going through, what you're trying to say. Basically, it's like a hamster wheel. What
yeah,
you're looking for so many things. How do you find that one?
yeah.
Yeah.
And those were the first when Lily James agreed, or when we first started talking, I was in lockdown up in the Himalayas. She was in lockdown in London. We'd never met, but we started to, WhatsApp each other. And these were the questions that I kept thinking of and we kept talking about. And so exactly what you're saying, you're on a hamster wheel. And as a young woman of today, how do you handle it? How do you handle it? I don't know. I was a little safer because we were bound, there were locks on us. And there's sometimes, there are doors you can't go through. So you say, oh, I can't go through it. So I'm okay. There are
Yeah.
boundaries. Now there are no boundaries. Now, without the boundaries, you are responsible for what you do. That's tough. That's
It's
really
tough.
tough. Yeah.
It's tough. I agree. But somewhere would you wish you had these dating apps back in your day before you got married? Let's say.
I lived in London in the 80s and late 70s, and I was part of that huge music revolution.
Mm.
I was there when I met Mick Jagger for the first time, and I said, the first time I saw you, you sang "I Can Get No Satisfaction" in Hyde Park, and it was free. I was part of the big music and the big sexual revolution. So we didn't have dating apps. We were a little freer. We would meet quite easily in restaurants in the park. A lot of my relations just casually walking in the park and saying hello to somebody. So it was that. So I didn't miss out on the dating apps. We just, how peacocks are, go around, so you ruffle your feathers and things. It's a
Right.
dating app. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were like that, we walked through. So I didn't miss out on the sexual revolution, but it was different times. It was different times because it was done through music. It was done through a vast sea change in the way we perceived ourselves. We, at that time in London, we all re-looked at our own moral standards. Middle class boy from India suddenly thrown into London, suddenly, what? And suddenly becoming like completely experimental.
Yes.
So, what I say when people say, okay, here's a film, it's a rom-com, and I'm thinking, "Ah, everything that I know, everything that I feel, everything I wonder about has to go into every film that I make." And so what you see is that the family thing. I had 42 first cousins. How can I not be part of the politics of a family?
Yeah.
42 first cousins. How do you do that? So, yeah, all of that went in. So now I'm going to wait for you to ask questions. I've barreled.
No, no, no. I'm great that we are having this conversation. I want to ask you something. So I was speaking to Shabana ma'am yesterday, and
Yeah.
she was talking about this sense of sisterhood that was there on the set with Emma Thompson, and she said that she fabulously got along with her. As a filmmaker, how did it feel to have such a robust set? You have a Shabana Azmi, you have a Emma Thompson, you have a Lily James. How was that like?
Uh, but this friendship between Shabana and I could not have guessed it would happen.
Hmm.
But they're such good actresses and they care about the same things. Shabana is a huge human rights and feminist activist, and so is Emma Thompson is a huge human rights activist, and I think they just connected. And that was part of it was also part of the role. I mean, the whole idea when I first spoke to Emma Thompson was that you, despite the fact you're white, you land up admiring Aisha, your neighbor, because she has everything that you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you just like her, you ape her and you become a best friend. But you're yet unable to get out of your British way of talking. So because that's edited, so you're constantly making mistakes. So they
Yes.
were supposed to be best friends, but that best friendship and the way they hugged each other, some of the scenes are not in the film. One day you'll have a director's cut, you see everything that is not in the film. But then naturally walk in and it is a scene they would put their arms around each other. It really worked for the film. It was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
Yes.
And they still talk to each other all the time.
That's right. Just speaking about Shabana ma'am, so Masoom had released in 80, exactly 40 years. I mean, 4 decades.
I
Can you
know. Isn't
imagine?
it isn't it lovely that 4 decades later we arrive on the set in Shabana and I feel like, okay, this is we just carried on from where Masoom left off. Of course, much
Yes.
more experienced, much more mature. I refuse to call myself mature because I've always prided myself that I'm a bit of a child and will die a child. So
Mhm.
whenever I write a story about me, here's the man who refused to grow up. Please say that to people. If anybody writes a book on me, when I go, here's the man who refused to grow up. But no, but Shavana and I just took off. It didn't take. She, even if I got upset
Mhm.
on set, especially you know, there's always conflict set. She would just say, Shaker, stop it. Just stop it. Just stop it. You're not the only one on the set. The other people. So we had that kind of friendship going
Yeah.
constantly. So it was amazing. I was surprised how easy it was. It was like we've been continuing to work for 40 years and we're making something else. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was very interesting. She's a very committed actor. I
Yes.
remember when she got sick. When she got sick, she refused not to come to the set. No, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'll perform. I'll do it. I'll do it. Right.
That's great. Yeah. So what was my favorite part of the film? The wedding. I think as Indians, we can never get over these elaborate weddings that we see on the big screen. And we
Yeah.
are never tired of watching those.
And we never tried of taking part of those. And it's quite fascinating that I don't know when it started, but it's such a fascinating thing, this sort of dance off competition between the bride's family and the groom's family. I can't remember it happening 40 years ago, but it's always everybody it happens now. And it's such a wonderful, it's become a tradition. So I used a little bit, little hints of that. And because Emma Thompson was from the groom's family. In my view, she insisted on coming and dancing and enjoying herself. But yeah, I was the one who said, yeah, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. If it was completely up to me, I would have had Lily James dancing. I would have had like how Slumdog Millionaire had, and with a
Yeah.
big Bollywood, the whole cast. And Lily would get in every now and again and start dancing, and she was so incredible. And I would say, Lily, can I shoot you? Can I put in the film? Let's put in the film. But of course, it wasn't in the character to that. In the film, she was an observer.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
that with the camera, she couldn't get up and dance. Right? Much as I would have loved her to.
Will we see you directing a Hindi film again anytime soon? I mean, I'm sure you get that asked a lot.
All the time, every day. I wanted to make Pani. No, I'm not saying it's anybody else's fault. Sushant passed away.
Hmm.
Um, I've probably forgotten the politics of filmmaking in India because remember, I hadn't made a film in India since Bandit Queen. After Bandit Queen, I went overseas. I made Elizabeth, I made Golden Age, I made Four Feathers, I made a huge series on the young William Shakespeare. I even did a horror series based on remember the film Omen? So
Hmm.
I made a series that little boy growing up, what happens. I made that series. I've done theater. I've done musical theater. I even it was very funny. One day somebody came to me and said, "You do musical theater?" I did Bombay Dreams with A.R. Rahman, and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yes.
yeah, I like adventure.
Mm.
But when people say, when I was 24, this is another thing I say to young people. They say, "How did you do it? How did you decide to get in film?" I didn't. When I was 24, I decided to give up one word from my life. It was called career. And because I remember in Delhi when I was a kid, I constantly heard, "You're not Punjabi, are you? You don't look Punjabi." No. Okay. But no, but if you live in Punjab, everybody's heard this word. It says, "Oh, he's doing so well for himself." I remember that. I used to hate that. I used to hate. He's doing so well for himself. So I said, I'm not ever going to be part of that prison. I'm not ever going to be the prison of, oh, he's doing so well for himself. Right?
Ah,
I'm going to
got
have a
it.
career, and I'm going to go through an adventure. So this is a very long answer to your very short question, which is, when do you come back? I want to come back, but I want
Hmm.
it to be another adventure. I don't want to come back and say, let's make Mr. India again. Let's make something groundbreaking. It is an ambition in me that if Chinese films, now of course,
Hmm.
RRR started putting,
Yeah.
Rajmouli's done it, somebody's done it. I always thought that I would come back because at that time, Chinese films were breaking records worldwide. Korean
Hmm.
film, Korean series, why not Indian? And so
Very
Raj
true.
opened the path for me. So I don't have to be the first one. But you remember when the biggest hit out of India is actually, is still something that was 15 years ago was Slumdog Millionaire. But nobody,
Hmm.
Indian film. It was an Indian film. It was just the director was Danny Boyle and the writer
Yeah.
was overseas, but the novel was from an Indian author. Everybody was Indian, shot in India, everything. But so I said, let's do it. Let's put India on the map, on the international map. Thank
Yeah.
God. These Oscars have proven that happens, that is possible. So, all right, invite me. You guys invite me. Come make a film in India, but make it an adventure for me. Make it because if you're not climbing a mountain you haven't climbed before, then where's the adventure?
That is very true.
You know, when we were kids, do you remember when we were kids, we used to jump over little puddles and ditches? Why?
Yes.
Because the adventure was that you could fall in. If there was no threat of falling into the ditch, you wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
Climb a mountain. So I want to do it with, of course, there's a threat that you might fail. Otherwise, why do anything? If it's everything is certain, then what's life about? So that's one of the messages of my film is love is not a certainty. It can
Yeah.
never be. Because when love becomes a certainty, then it disappears. Because love
Yeah.
is life
Agreed.
is a mystery, right? Love is a yearning, it's a longing. Even if you have a partner for years, if you don't wake up in the morning and yearn for your partner, otherwise it's habit. And the number
Hmm.
of times I've heard people of your age and everybody saying, okay, now we said we are dating, now we are boyfriend, girlfriend, now we get married and everything, and now you belong to me, I belong to you. Oh my God, the moment the word belong comes in, that's the end of it.
Yes, it's daunting.
It's not daunting, it's destructive. You belong to me now. Huh? What do you
Hmm.
mean? How can one human being belong to another? It's not slavery. What are you talking about? It's like on either side. So
Yeah.
it's consistently, and that's what I'm hoping people will get out of this film also. It's a yearning, it's a longing. And if the yearning and the longing ends, love ends.
Yes.
I think one of the
Very
things,
true.
right? Okay, I'm going to let you ask me questions. Now you
No,
see
no,
how I
no, that's fine.
films, I guys go. Okay,
I mean, it's my privilege to see you speaking about, such varied things. But sir, before I let you go, I have two specific questions that I would want to ask you since you are an environmentalist also, and you were so passionate about Pani. Do you want to make it eventually in the future?
let's drop the word eventually. Let's drop the word future. I'm going to make it now.
Wow, that's
Okay.
lovely. That's great.
But take out
Also,
eventually, take out future, make it now. It's a film about the future that is actually very close, not the future. It's
mhm,
here. Like,
yeah,
we talk about global warming. We used to talk about it one day. I'm
yeah.
now very involved here with COP28, and my whole thing is in COP27 in Egypt. I could not handle the fact that they were complaining about the fact that they don't get their food in time. They
Mm,
were living in luxury resorts. And I was
yeah.
thinking, hang on, what you're talking about is global warming. You're talking about no water. You're talking about kids that are starving to death a few hundred miles from where you are.
Hmm.
And you're saying, oh, mera khana time pe nahi aaya." You can't do that. You can't do that. So the new COP that is happening in the UAE, I'm really fighting to make sure that the delegates understand why they're there. Then you're not there. You will. I mean, 1.2 degrees global warming. Go out. Talk to intelligent people. I'm not saying even talk to the people on the streets and everything. Talk to people who think that they know everything. What does 1.2 degrees global warming mean? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
What we do in our we shroud. It's like a big veil on our understanding is statistics, and governments keep throwing out statistics. GDP is another one, but that's another one. But no, environmentally, we are past the danger mark, completely past the
Yes.
danger mark. And the reason you and I don't notice it because water runs in our taps. Water
Yeah.
still runs in our flush. Now, 95% of the people in the world, that doesn't happen. And very soon, water, we know that, the water cut, okay, if you're in Mumbai, you don't face it that much, but all over India, there are water cuts all the time. I remember as a kid, we used to fill in 4 a.m., we used to fill in buckets and drums of water so that we could have water all day. Very soon, there won't be any water for your drums. Very soon, what is already happening is that there will be such little water. India's run out of groundwater. There was a time when we used to have, those pumps. Tube wells. We used to have tube well. Our heroes in films used to be tube well makers, engineers. Those tube wells have behind us. है ही नहीं पानी. पानी है ही नहीं. क्या बात कर रहे हैं? So it's a big environmental issue coming. And so the theme of Pani is very simple. If you don't manage, if you don't look at yourself now, if you don't handle it, we are heading towards the next colonization. And we are going to be colonized again by those that control the water resources. So be very careful. Very careful. Yeah.
Is there any particular actor that you see, headlining this film?
Sushant was in the film at that time. Unfortunately, he passed away. So it was very difficult for me to get around and say, okay, now let's just make another film with another actor. It's not that easy, when you're committed to fall in love with another person, He was a very easy guy to fall in love with. He was just incredible. So, I will find another actor. There has to be. Because, environment, water, colonization, these are bigger than your love for one actor.
That is right. And very lastly, the last question that I had for you is, I've heard somewhere that you're probably making a series adaptation of Amish Tripathi's Shiva trilogy. Is that happening, sir?
Yeah, well, it'll take some time because it's a very difficult thing to make because it requires a huge budget. I'm a big fan of the series. Amish is just an incredible writer, and he is what I named him, the literary pop star of India. He is that.
That's right.
And he just has brought, he brought, I would say, Hinduism, mysticism, religion to young people that would have never gone into it, ever not gone into it. Because when I met him, because he invited me to launch his book. And when I went there, they were all kids, like young teenagers. I was thinking, what are they doing reading this book? It was quite incredible. That's why I call him the literary pop star. This is amazing. Yes. So the question is yes. We've decided to do it together. It'll take some time because it's so expensive. And the OTT platforms themselves are going through a little few issues themselves. And they resolve their budgetary issues. They have to give us the same budget they give American filmmakers. Why should we accept it? Why should we accept it?
Why should we compromise, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're all looking at India as the greatest market coming. So let's behave like it's the biggest market coming. Don't behave like, hey, chiller dal lete hain. What are you doing?
Great.
Give us some respect, right?
Right. Well, I'm really looking forward to all of that. And sir, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. All the very best for What's Love Got to Do With. It's releasing in Indian cinemas this Friday.
Thank you. Can I ask you one last question?
Yes, sir.
Have you found love?
In the process.
That's what I mean. Love is always in the process. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.